So I'm going to switch this on.
Do we have people on already?
Yeah.
Or...
So I just have to switch the scene because I already set this up for our IGs and I'm adding you and we're all in and we've got 17 people live with us right now. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for your patience. In the year of 2020, I still have technical difficulties. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I will tell you the truth, which is that Blessing is notoriously late to absolutely everything.
No, I actually had to set this one up, but okay, cool. So basically, we have had questions in from people on the Google Forms, which has been really nice, and we also have, our own things that we wanted to talk about. So I am just gonna. Where is my phone? Okay, I wanted to let the good people on Instagram know that we're on live. And yes. Hi, Freda. Can everyone who's here just say hi and welcome my special guest, Aqsa? And I'm really excited. Hey, Susanna. Yeah, everyone just comment, say hi, and let's introduce ourselves. Hi, Diana. It's really nice that so many of you are here. Hi, Ramesa. Hi, everybody. If you just bear with me a moment, I'm actually going to grab my phone and so I can tell everybody on Instagram that we're live right now.
In the meantime, I will keep you all company.
Yes, in the meantime, keep saying hi and welcome yourself to Aqsa. Hi, Caitlin.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is my first live stint. I'm not someone who's as social media savvy as Blessing. So learning all my tricks from her. And particularly at a time when I'm starting something up. So that's useful.
Hey, Mass. Hey, Jess. No, actually, you're doing really well. And you've really embraced it all, especially in these times. You've really been really proactive about just grabbing the social media world with both hands. And I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
You're a podcaster. You've been podcasting. You've been doing everything.
Getting some feedback on my first podcast. That was good.
Feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I ask all my friends and the ones I trust and such to listen and give me honest feedback. And yeah, it's been, I think everybody enjoyed the first podcast. It was quite heavy for some because it was about female genital mutilation. I don't start soft. I, go in with a bang with something. Yeah, that's many said quite gruesome, but, such a powerful story. And some of the feedback was that even for a layperson, some things were a bit too complex. So if you really didn't know anything about FGM, you wouldn't have known about certain laws that had been passed or the fact that the first case was ever prosecuted just end of 2019. So, yeah, those are things that I need to keep in mind, that I am not only making podcasts for people who know about these issues quite well, and they're the people who are probably going to share them, but also people who have never been exposed to these issues potentially before. So
keeping in mind the fact that you're making content that's going to be accessed by people basically from whatever intimacy with the law, so they could have absolutely completely person all the way, but then they still need to. I feel you with that, because that's a challenge I find when I'm doing my podcast as well, is that so I'll pick a topic, and what I try and do is, in order to make sure I ground myself, I try and find what's been trending that week or whatever on Twitter, and then I'm like, okay, if I frame the conversation this way, then people will relate to it and they will understand it because this has been what they've been talking about all week. And then I just try and root it in there. But I'm really proud of you for your first podcast. And where can people find all of your podcasts and stuff like that?
Go on to www.humanrightspulse.com and you can find everything there, from articles to podcasts. And, we've got some new exciting projects starting soon. But all the podcasts are there for now. We've only got one that's published. There's another one coming out this week. And that one will actually be quite interesting for those who are just curious about what the project is. So it's a podcast with my co-founder and we sit down virtually via Zoom and talk about Human Rights Pulse and how it started, what our expectations are, where we see it going. Yeah.
That's really good. So before we get started and get into all of the good stuff, if you are watching this on Instagram, the live is not happening on Instagram, but I've been very, very nice to you, and I've put a link to this YouTube live stream in my link in bio, and it's only going to be up there for a few more minutes. But if you want to come and join in, the link is there, and you can come and join in and come and watch Aqsa and I on YouTube, because we're going to get into the conversation now. So bye everybody on Instagram, and join us over on YouTube. Click the link in my bio. Bye. I always have to do that because the people on the good people on Instagram love to not come online when they should be. Right. Oh, Instagram have changed, and now you can only share your videos to IGTV. How odd.
Well, there you go. Well, maybe we've kept everyone waiting for 20 minutes. So how about getting into some of the questions?
Yeah, we're gonna get into the questions. So, before that,
Who's our audience?
who's our audience? So we currently have 21 people with us. So hi everyone who's here. And everybody who has joined us has expressed an interest in human rights law or just wanting to learn more about human rights. And if anybody in the comments just wants to keep us updated over who you are, what stage you are in your legal journey, are you studying, are you prospective, and then it will help us when we're answering questions and stuff like that. And you've introduced Human Rights Pulse a bit, and you've talked about the podcast and the work you've been doing with it. But I was just wondering if you could just, in a nutshell, tell us what Human Rights Pulse is about, and where it started and its aims as well.
Yeah. So, gosh, okay. Let me give you a brief overview about what Human Rights Pulse is, which is this platform to create content and almost democratize the human rights field. And when I say democratize, I don't say it lightly. I mean that to make it accessible, to human rights to be something that everybody can talk about, as long as you have an engaged and informed point of view to write about. One of the things we are focusing on at the moment is growing our writers base. So we've got writers from all around the world now. So, today I just had new writers one from Japan and one from Morocco.
Wow. All over the world,
yeah, literally all over the world. And it's very small and piecemeal, but the goal is to really grow this in truly global international platform that can be used as almost a hub for international human rights practitioners, whether that's lawyers, experts, aspiring students, NGOs, etc., for them to be able to come and find reliable content written by other students, experts, professionals, etc. So right now we've got current affairs that we do, which are mainly written by students or young professionals. We've got legal updates that are written by lawyers / late law students. Late in their studies, not dead law students. And we've got community contributions, which range from anything from, someone writing poetry about human rights issues to photo story, like photo journaling about some sort of issue. So our last photo journal, the photographer had traveled pre-coronavirus to the border of Serbia and Hungary, and took incredible photos just about the conditions there and the life there, and he wrote a sort of story about it, which we published. So that was awesome. And then the community contributions also encompass just topical issues and people's interpretations or ideas about them. All encompassing. Just started the podcast, as we've already mentioned. That's been a massive hit so far, so that's quite cool. I think in our first day we had 500 downloads.
Hey, that's such good. That's numbers.
I haven't checked since then, so it's been 2 days since it's been up. So it's slow, it's small, but it's growing slowly. So I'm quite proud of it.
That reach is really amazing to see, and it just goes to show that what you're creating, there's a demand for it and people want it. And part of the reason I'm really excited to sit down and have this conversation with you today is just because I've seen how so many people talk about human rights being the area that got them into wanting to study law. And you and I were talking the other day, and you were mentioning about how it's just a generally important thing for people to be on top of and aware of. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it
And
just goes to show, doesn't it?
100%. I think most people go into the law to study it with this sense of justice and wanting to make a change, and, like having seen or experienced injustice, and really wanting to do something about it. And obviously that changes depending on your interest throughout law school. I know you, for example, started loving property law.
I still
I
love
know,
property laws.
yeah, I
Hey.
don't. Yeah, whereas, I actually quite liked equity towards the end, which, I'm never going to be
I
a
actually kind
chancery
of like
lawyer.
equity, equity's not so
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I ended up doing well in the exams, but it's not a passion at all. And I really found that niche that I am committed to this field because of the reasons I came in, and I want to stick with those reasons, which does unfortunately mean I won't make a lot of money, but I'll have a lot of a full heart, so to speak.
feel
Um,
fulfilled.
yeah, but as we also spoke about the other day, it is important for everyone to be apprised of what human rights is.
Mm.
Everyone talks what is human rights, what is human rights. I mean, everyone should sort of know that it's something that is all encompassing. It's the basic rights and freedoms that belong to everybody from birth to death, essentially. So it matters for everyone. It's relevant for everyone, and we should all be aware of what's happening. Here in our hometown in London, in Senegal, in South Korea, we should know the sorts of issues that are going on affecting mankind,
And
essentially. So,
I tweeted the other day, I was sharing Human Rights Pulse articles just on my Twitter, and I said, it reminds me of my role as a global citizen. I need to be mindful and aware about what's going on in places that aren't where I live. And that's a really important thing that I need to do. And sometimes you can sort of not stay in your bubble, but stay in your bubble and maybe focus on, okay, what's going on here, but then actually what happens internationally affects you. And it's important for all of us who want to be mindful, who want to be aware, who want to know where to put our support and what we can do from our own countries to actually try and help other people abroad. And I did a youth outreach event last year, October time, and it was really amazing for me to see these kids who were in like year 10 and 11 trying to get petitions signed, and trying to raise awareness about um, just raising awareness about things that they live in London, and yet the things they were campaigning for were happening on the other side of the world, and they were still
yeah.
doing that. And that's what I think is really important, and I loved that energy. So before we get into the first question, which I think really fits with what you were just talking about, I just wanted to give everyone who's commented a shout out, because people have updated us about where they are.
Right. I
Simran,
can't see any of the comments, by the way. Is there a
oh,
way I can?
I don't think I can share them with you, but I'm adding them to the broadcast right now.
Right.
So this is Simran. So she's starting law at University of Nottingham this year. So shout out to her, and hope you're looking forward to starting your legal studies. We got Rochelle, who's currently finishing off her master's in international human rights. So is very excited for this, and we're really glad to have you, Rochelle. Um, we
I see them now.
Oh,
Got
you
them on
see
my
them?
phone.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. And then we've got Frida. I've just finished GDL at University of Law. Clap for you for finishing the GDL.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy. And Susanna Raj starting law this September at Bristol. I hope you're looking forward to starting law, and I hope today's session is going to inspire you. Jackie Wakefield starting the BPTC at City Law School this September. We did our BPTC at City as well, so I hope that you're looking forward to that as well. Diana Lopez, I'm a legal advisor from Guinea-Bissau, working in London with the aim of becoming a human rights solicitor. That's really amazing. And Diana, if you could, I'd be interested to know your perspective on working in human rights law. with reference to being someone from Guinea-Bissau and how what's happened in your country has affected and influenced you. So if you want to drop a comment about that, then Aqsa and I can discuss that. We've got Jess Paness. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Starting PPE this September at Manchester and hoping to do my GDL after. Shout out to non-law first degrees. Aqsa and I did not study law as our first degree, and we both really enjoyed that. Shout out to Karina, second year law student at Durham. Caitlin Bainbridge, also finishing my LLM in human rights, like Rochelle. Mass, I'm a current pupil and generally interested in learning more about human rights. Pulse. And we got Tayshan Ifil. I'm sorry, that's my really good friend, and I still can never pronounce his surname. I'm so sorry. Trainee solicitor in corporate sector, but try to keep abreast with human rights development. Super excited for this, and we're really glad to have you, Tayshan. And Rochelle and Caitlin. Oh, and then we got Aluchi. Hey guys, first year. Is that history and political studies?
Human science, I think.
Oh, human sciences. I was like, wait,
I don't know.
I only know history and politics because that was my undergraduate degree. So I'm just like really biased towards that. But it's so nice to have all of you and welcome everybody. So now let's get into the first question. So actually, this relates to what you were talking about. And this question is from Karina. And it says, oh, so she's wanted specifically 5 things that distinguish practice in human rights from other sectors of law. If we can't think of 5, then that's fine.
Yeah, gosh, you really put me on the spot there. It's not like I had a script prepared. It would be useful, Blessing, to give me the questions in advance next time. No, but okay, so spontaneity. Right, let's try this. Okay, 5 things which differentiate it. I'm going to start very dark. You're going to be poor, compared to if you do a good commercial pupillage or as in or a training contract, whatever. It's going to be it's not as lucrative. That's essentially one thing, and that's something I wish I realized a bit better. Not that I think it would have changed my path, but it definitely. When I say poor, by the way, it's all very relative. Yeah, I think it would have informed maybe some of the things I would have wanted to complement the area with, this area of law. But in general, I think, it's such a rewarding career. I'm just at the start of it, and I'm already so excited when I get given work to do with, anything from refugee, from refugee immigration related rights to prisoners' rights. To international human rights stuff. Right now I'm working on a couple of cases for the European Court of Human Rights that we're submitting there. And they're both pro bono cases, so we don't get paid anything for them. But it's so rewarding to know that you're part of this wider systemic change that's coming about because of your efforts. So that's probably the first kind of dark thing. I think the second... and I'm not sure I'll make it to 5, but I will try. I think it's very much an area driven by passion. I don't know. Again, I say this not really having a passion for any other area of law. I'm a criminal public / human rights pupil at the moment. So for me, those are the areas that I'm really interested in. And again, every time I feel so much energy when I'm doing work in those areas. So yeah, I guess being driven by passion is one. Thirdly, it relates to a large group of people, I think. So whenever you're dealing with human rights issues, you're not just doing it for one person. Whenever you make some sort of change or decision, it has ripple effects. If the Home Office or the government don't like a decision that you've just ended up making or whatever, they'll tighten the little gaps in their legislation and guidelines to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, they'll loosen those.
And I think that's how, I think sometimes when people think about, getting into law or becoming a lawyer because they want to change the law, I think sometimes it's important to remember that, like you said, that tightening or like closing up the gaps is a really common way that lawyers can have an impact on the law. It's not firsthand, but it's the, like you said, the ripple effect. And I think that's what I really find the most interesting about areas that impact upon the decisions that governments make and how they make decisions going forward. So whether that's human rights, immigration, public generally, they're all sort of related in that way. And that's really interesting. And you answered the second part of the question, which was about pay. I've sent you, if you look on your WhatsApp, I've sent you a link to the spreadsheet with all of the questions that we've got so far. And
Oh, I've got it on my phone, so I should be able to.
okay,
Oh, those questions. Got
the
it.
submitted ones. And if anybody here on the live is inspired, has a question, please feel free to comment and ask the question. We're here to have a conversation, and yeah, even though it's Aqsa and I up here, we're here to have a back and forth with you as well. So let's move on to the second set of questions we've got. So before we do that, actually, has anyone here have anything that they wanted to ask to follow up on what Axa just said and talked about? And whilst I pull up the second set of questions, if you have anything you want to respond to, please let us know.
Yeah. I think one thing I'll add is that, also in human rights law, often you're dealing with international agreements and conventions and such, which is quite exciting because it really makes you feel like the work that you're doing is not just impactful here in the UK or in London or wherever you are, but really across the world. It can be, used as some sort of precedent almost. I know
yes.
Yeah, I know in a lot of the work that we do, we often refer to, well, if you look at the way the New South Wales area in Australia handled the same crisis, that's what they did. It's good to give comparisons, although they're not always applicable. Yeah, it is definitely something, that international component that you see unifies every single country and every single lawyer in the field.
Because it's a common experience. And are you a member of any international human rights sort of organizations or lawyer organizations? Would you recommend that people join those sorts of things?
Yeah, definitely. I would say get on into them in LinkedIn and Facebook. Often you've got to have your foot in the door in the profession to be able to get into those groups. So you've got to fill out some sort of form that proves your commitment to the field, and plus the fact that you're already working there. I think they don't recommend or they don't want students to just clog it up, which is, I think, unfortunate, because there should be a place for students to be able to see what practitioners are doing and discussing in the social media space. But anyway, I'm a member of, in the UK, things like the Human Rights Lawyers Association, I've got membership at the International Bar Association, Justice, Liberty, etc. And in the international space, like I mentioned, I'm a member of many Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. I'm always sort of networking online. I am, as Blessing says, in her opinion, the queen of LinkedIn, although I feel like some of your viewers are a bit more better at LinkedIn than I am, but we're getting there.
So we've got a question from Tayshan. He says, because you say human rights isn't very well remunerated, would you say that encourages you to be more entrepreneurial and make money through other streams to enable you to pursue your passion?
100%, yeah. I don't really know what those other streams are yet. I'm still working on it, and I guess I can be a bit patient just because my chambers is offering me quite a generous award, so I'm not like rushing to figure out what those other streams are. But it's definitely something I've got to think about, because I grew up in an environment that we didn't have much money or anything, and I definitely don't want to go back to that place. And I want to be comfortable. I want to help those around me as well. I don't want my family to ever think about money again, and those, so they are genuine concerns. And I'm still at the stage where trying to figure out how to reconcile how to reconcile this sort of passion and drive for the work I want to do, but also figure out how I'm gonna make a decent living.
That financial
I don't have an answer for it yet. That's
I feel that a lot. You know, I always have this similar pull when I'm sat here trying to figure out, okay, which areas of law should I target and should I position myself towards. I don't try and focus too much on money, but then money comes up. You know, it's an inevitable thing. And so what I've started trying to do is make sure that my entrepreneurial side feeds into who my future barrister self is going to be. And just basically, if barrister me is a business, then I also want to be an entrepreneur in other parts of my life so that I've got multiple streams of income. And I definitely have talked about as well, you know, using my online platforms and monetizing those and doing things online to support me and to create a second stream because like you mentioned, having a really good pupillage award is an excellent thing, but for a lot of people in working in other areas of law that are legally aid funded, they can find themselves struggling a lot, and financial impact of working in these critical areas like human rights, family, immigration, crime. They're the ones that are the first things you think about when you think about justice and protecting citizens and individuals' rights. And then they're the ones where the lawyers working in them are struggling the most. And it's so, it bothers you and it boggles the mind. But that's why having that entrepreneurial spirit can be really a savior for you.
Yeah, and I think, it's also something to bear in mind that those fields often are traditionally taken up by those from backgrounds that have faced some level of injustice. The number of BAME lawyers who are in family, immigration, crime, etc., those areas are far greater than there are in the commercial world. And yeah, perhaps there's a reason for that, because maybe they've, first-hand experienced injustices or seen them in their communities, etc. But, it shouldn't be this perpetuating cycle that if I decide to do one of these areas of law, that I'm also not going to be able to make a decent living. So I mean, it's a struggle. Still got to figure it out. And when I have answers, I will let you know. But I like what Blessing said about, really honing in on your entrepreneurial spirit. If you have that, if you have skills like, I don't know, if you can graphic design on the side or learn how to make a website, or I don't know, stuff like that,
No, that's really
practical
true.
skills.
And
Yeah.
a lot of
And
chambers.
I
No, carry on, carry on.
no, I lost my train of thought.
I was just saying that a lot of chambers offer their pupils and members training and support to actually manage themselves like a business. And that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to having access to when I am in the chambers. Um, I want to get that sort of insight into how I run my barrister self like a business, because I feel like when you look at social entrepreneurship, there are a lot of resources and there are a lot of things explaining how you can be an online creator and monetize yourself and so on. But then in the legal space, it's quite challenging to figure out how you're going to do that as a self-employed person working in the law. But thank you so much for that question. And as always, if there's anything anyone wants to ask to follow up, please feel free. So I have pasted in the next question that we've got. And I've just put it there on the live broadcast. And this question is from Serena. And it says, what can lawyers in England and Wales do to help with international legal situations / human rights, such as Islamophobia in India or anti-LGBTQ plus laws throughout the Commonwealth?
Yeah, really good question. So I guess the first thing I would think of is that, the first thing that springs to mind is everyone who goes into the law has a voice that they are willing to use, right? They're willing to advocate for issues, whatever those issues are. They're willing to advocate for people. They're willing to tell stories. That's what we as lawyers want to do. That's why we go into the profession. I think, your voice is so powerful. Lawyers are respected in society for a reason, and you should be using that, whether that, English lawyers, international lawyers, etc. Even if it's not part of your core practice, I would, still engage with issues, even if it's on a pro bono basis, which often it will be, because you are dealing with charities or marginalized people who don't necessarily have the funds to pay you to advocate for them. So if there are issues that you're passionate about, like you mentioned, Islamophobia, find out what those different organizations are, different not even organizations, maybe even activists that you follow on social media and stuff, and ask them, how can I get involved? What do you want me to do in my capacity as a lawyer? I can help you. I've just recently joined the advisory panel of MEND, which is basically a charity that focuses on tackling hate crime in the UK and focusing primarily on Islamophobia and the way that British Muslims are perceived by, I guess, the police, the media, etc. So, that's something that people reached out to me for. I was like, absolutely, in my capacity as a lawyer, I'm more than happy to help with that. I'm also involved in many other, advocating for many other issues, because I feel like I can, even though my platform isn't, millions and millions of people. Yeah. And it's still enough that once you get the ball rolling on social media, you really can reach people. For me, it's about awareness. It's about persistence in being an advocate for these issues, and just, giving a voice to the voiceless, really. So get involved, write about it. If you're passionate about an issue, write about it on Human Rights Pulse even. But just keep the conversation alive. I think that so many of these issues, the conversation just, unless there is some giant catastrophe, and only if there is some catastrophe does a conversation come back onto the radar. How many people are thinking about the Uyghurs in China, or, the Amazon rainforest, or, all these issues that are fundamentally human rights issues, but we're not really thinking about them because there hasn't been such a disaster yet. We should still be talking about them.
And it's an out of sight, out of mind thing. And I really love that you mentioned that. I remember last summer when I was researching a couple of videos for my YouTube channel, it was around the time that the Blue for Sudan online social media campaign started happening. And I remember thinking about how impactful it was that people were creating their own sort of like threads to educate their own communities. But when that was replicated en masse, it was a really fantastic thing to see. So even if it's going into, like you said, taking that first step, contacting people, how can I help? And then once you figure that out, everyone's got influence, even if it's a small amount of influence, if it's huge, we've all got platforms. And so that really showed how just a few people being able to get the message out saying, this is what we're doing, this is what's going on in our country, help us. And then everyone amplifying that. That's how you can find yourself keeping conversations alive after the initial flash bang has faded away. And that's something that I think that, I would also recommend for a lot of people, if you do want to stay on top of something, that you on apps like Instagram and Twitter, you can actually follow a topic. So I would suggest and recommend to you that you perhaps follow, if it's if you want to look at, so just taking the question, if you want to look at Islamophobia, you could follow the topic of Islamophobia. Then what Twitter and Instagram will do is they will start to show you real-time highlights of when those topics are becoming trending topics at different parts. And then obviously supplement that by following platforms like Human Rights Pulse and making sure that you are looking up extra information, just being proactive and mindful and amplifying messages. That's the best way, I would say, you can, like Aqsa said, you can keep the message going and help people by using your voice. So thank you so much for answering that.
Yeah. I must just also add that, I haven't yet found the issues that I'm super passionate about and going to dedicate my life's work to. That takes time. I'm sort of exploring everything. I'm, involved as much as I can. I'm, as Blessing said, following as many hashtags as I can, refugees, women's rights, children's rights, water, any sort of thing that I'm interested in or I think is interesting. I'm following it all. And eventually you'll carve out your niche in the area that you'll sort of, you'll be known for. But before then, just learn as much as you can, absorb as much information as you can, and try and find the connections between these various areas as well.
And the relationships between them. That's really good.
Yeah.
We've got our next question, but for some reason I'll put it in. Oh, Susanna's added a question, um, which I think will be nice to look at. Have you ever had a case that compromised your own beliefs or values? How have you dealt with that?
So I also do criminal law. And yeah, often you've got to defend, people who aren't,
Not great.
yeah, they're not great. And that's just the reality. Or, I mean, I also know in public, I remember having to draft some pleadings draft some arguments for people who are, sorry, I'm trying to get my words right without sounding really offensive. Basically, people who want to be released on parole, etc., but really are such troublemakers, and still you've got to advocate for them to be released or to get bail in, whether we're talking in the criminal context, etc. And yeah, it does. I mean, I wouldn't say it compromises my morals, just because I do really believe in that fair trial point. Everybody deserves a fair trial. Everybody deserves for their story to be heard. But yeah, sometimes it makes you a bit uncomfortable, maybe. And that's just the reality of it. If I sit face to face with somebody who, which actually I think was my last case before the coronavirus started, I was with my supervisor, and the client was this guy who had, I think, just downloaded so much, child abuse photos and such, and we just had to sit there and look at him as he sort of denied it all. And I don't know, you just feel quite uncomfortable, a bit gross, but you ultimately believe he'll have his day in court. Our job is to defend him. It's other people have to, the prosecution have to bring the case, and in the end, whoever's got the better evidence will win, so to speak.
And that's the interesting part about being a lawyer that will always fascinate me, about how when it comes down to the court process, it's whoever's the best at the adversarial process within the rules that we've got, and whoever's got the best evidence wins. And you sort of have to remove yourself from the situation and just get a bit objective. And it can be hard sometimes. I've had that when I think about working in public law, and then, acting for the government. For a long time, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. And then you sort of have to separate you from it and be like, okay, I'm an officer of the court. It's just my job.
Yeah.
And I need to do it well.
And ideally, we get to a point in our careers when we can choose a bit more, be more selective about the cases that we take on. But in the early days, the reality is you want to get as much experience as you can. When I'm doing crime, I will be both prosecuting and defending. Yeah, that doesn't mean, I'm an arm of the government, or I'm, an arm of defendants. I'm trying to get as broad an experience as I can, and doing both sides gives you insight into, how the other side thinks, really. So in the end, if you do end up specializing in just, as you said, blessing in just government work or just claimant-based work, you are able to, have insights that you gleaned from doing work on the other side.
And have that insight and the ability to choose. And I definitely find it interesting to see where, once people have got to the more experience point in their career, how they are like, I could never act the other side. Like, they sort of just get really, they develop themselves into a particular area.
Yeah, and you also get known for being a specialist in an area, and then it's almost quite difficult to change because you're being instructed on those matters. That work has formed part of your identity then,
and that's what people go to you for.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. So thank you for that question, Suzanne. That was really good. Diana, Diana shared some comments, but before we get into those, let's get into our next question. I am going to try and look at that. We can be edgy now. I love this app. So the next question here is from Jessica, and she says, do you think human rights is an area of law that is reserved predominantly for those who have been born into an elite section of society and thus already have advantageous networking opportunities and links? basically, do you think the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is particularly applicable to human rights law?
Absolutely not. I am quite the contrary to that altogether. I might look quite, put together right now with my little hoops and shirt,
You
but
look good.
no, not at all. I mean, that I don't think, as I mentioned at the beginning, these sorts of areas are generally, there is a greater proportion of minorities, those who have also themselves faced injustice, being in these areas as opposed to being in commercial, corporate, that setting. That being said, I think the legal profession itself is the one that you should be, thinking about more so, because it's very difficult without connections. That's the reality, to get work experience, to get to be able to get your foot in the door, essentially, to know what to do. I was almost, I was a fish out of water when it came to figuring out how to navigate the legal profession. I didn't even know what pupillage was or training contracts at the beginning of the GDL, and suddenly, had to figure it all out. And really, use the help of friends who I made during the GDL, but also just constant research online, trying to figure out, how am I going to get my first mini pupillage? How am I going to get my first thing? I have zero connections in the field.
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. One moment. I just have to mute myself for a sec.
Okay, no worries. I'll keep talking. Yeah. So you're not on mute yet.
I can't.
Yeah, it's
Brother,
not going on mute.
can you leave now?
That always happens over Zoom or Skype when you're with family members. I often have my little niece running around, and I'm just like, no, put the baby away. So this is her nap time.
Right. And so this is,
I was basically saying that, you need to make sure that you are just pursuing those opportunities. It doesn't matter whether you have connections or not, and I don't think human rights is reserved for a field, for people who have those connections and have that elite status. Often I don't think they'd be able to relate to some of the injustices going on. That being said, like I said, it isn't well remunerated. So yeah, there is a likelihood that if you are slightly wealthier, you'll be able to last in the profession longer. Maybe. But our generation is here to change that. So, don't be disheartened by it. Just keep trying, and use connections like us, and other people you do meet through your social media endeavors, going to events, which obviously you can't do now, webinars, etc. Reach out to people you're interested in, who have interesting careers, and just network like that. And we've got a level playing field at the moment. Nobody can go out. Everybody's at home and everybody's able to use the internet. So it's, in my opinion, a level playing field. Use it.
I love that you said that. It is exactly that. It's a level playing field right now, and you should use all of the tools and resources. I was listening to Naomi Campbell on live yesterday, and that's basically the same message she was saying. She was like, at the end of the day, right now, you've got just as many tools as anybody else. And so you can make whatever you want to. And it was in the context of fashion and that creative industry, but it's still relevant and it still relates. So thank you so much for actually shedding light on the fact that you don't come from that sort of traditional elite background, and you are killing it still. And I feel like you're a master.
That was really nice.
No, but I think that you're a really good example of someone who knows how to network well. And even with Human Rights Pulse and how you made all of that happen from your connections that you'd fostered through networking, that just goes to show the power of networking and why it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Doing all of that.
And it's, you've got to be intentional and meaningful when you network and when you connect with people. It's not just about trying to get as many, LinkedIn connections or social media connections as you can. It's about really being meaningful and engaging with those people. The people that helped me the most are people I met in person or even online who I had really interesting conversations with. I spent the time getting to know, and I've helped them with something or they've helped me with something. And you almost, you're just a sort of support network, even if you've never seen each other in real life. You become this amazing support network. So I can, the number of people that have helped with Human Rights Pulse, just taking it off the ground, and people from all over the world. It is because I stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning talking to people in China or people in, Argentina, etc. I was making sure I'm fostering these connections and relationships as much as I can.
That's month.
You're a good example of that as well, Blessing. I mean, you're constantly engaging with your followers on Instagram, social media, and everything. So that's why people trust you to come on to, a live stream like this. And
Thank you. And it's also because I can have conversations with people like you, and that's what I really like to do. I like to see myself as someone who brings people together. Okay, so we've got Diana's shared a few comments, so we'll just go through them. She says, "I'm really excited to have the opportunity to engage with you girls. You are really bright and assertive women, and I'm proud of you both for your work, achievements, and efforts. As a Guinea-Bissauan, I'm sorry if I haven't pronounced that right, citizen who was raised in Portugal and now lives in London, I've been engaging since an early age with human rights campaigning and activism regarding relevant issues in my country, such as FGM, forced marriages, and cultural ethnicity. In GB, we have more than 40 ethnicities, and it has been the source of our political problems. In 2012, I co-founded in Lisbon, Portugal, an NGO with the aim of working with Guinea-Bissau women and girls in the country and in Guinea-Bissau. We've been giving training in human rights and FGM to women and girls, and in the step, a lot of men engaged with us, which shows that they also want to change our patriarchal society. My ultimate aim is to go back to Guinea-Bissau and do the changes that I think are necessary there." Well,
wow,
that for you, Diana, that's amazing.
Diana, that's really incredible.
Amazing.
I think you mentioned some really interesting points there, particularly about the patriarchal society. One of the things that my guest during that FGM podcast we made said that it's not possible to bring the changes we need to eradicating FGM for good unless we bring men on board and unless we make them understand that, FGM is not something that's going to satisfy your sexual endeavors or, your religious or these ideas of purity and virginity and whatever you have. It's something that's dangerous and fundamentally, just illegal. It shouldn't be happening. In this day and age, especially. So I think that's so important you mentioned that. I'd love to touch base with you if you're ever interested in talking about some of the work you do and writing about Guinea-Bissau. Just let me know. I mean, that's so interesting. Some of the issues that you're working on.
And because we asked people to provide their emails when they ask questions. So email contacting and networking and connecting going forward is possible. And if anybody who has been involved and who has been connecting with each other in the comments, if you do want to, talk with each other some more, you can go because everyone here is subscribed to the mailing list. So once you've subscribed to the mailing list, you get an invitation to join the subscriber area where I've got a forum where people can connect with each other, share contact details in a sort of secure space and talk to each other. So if you want to carry on talking to each other going forward, there is a way to do that. I just wanted to share some responses that we had to people to our questions. So Simran, you're both killing it and making this profession accessible for us change makers. Thank you so much. Really sweet. We really appreciate that. And Jess as well, thank you so much for that answer. Genuinely so inspiring and reassuring. And also some more love for Diana, who has basically become one of my favorite people ever. So next question. So Diana had some questions that she submitted, but I think that we've touched on them. The first one was, what were your goals when you decided to create the Human Rights Platform? Human Rights Pulse platform, and I think we've done that. And we've touched upon this one already, but I thought maybe it might be nice to recap. So Diane has asked, in your opinion, what are the main skills to become a successful human rights lawyer? And I think with your background and your experience already, I think you're already showing many of them. But perhaps for everybody, if you wanted to maybe just touch on just some key skills and attributes that you need to have.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I'm still figuring them out. Remember, I'm still very early in my career and I'm getting stuff wrong all the time, but also knowing what works for me and what doesn't. I think one of the things that I have going for me is that I acquired quite a bit of diverse experience before coming into this world. Not just experience in the legal sector or in the human rights field. I've worked in cybersecurity, I've done strategy consulting, I've done international development based stuff. I've started up various different organizations to do with entrepreneurship and volunteering, etc. at university. So I really have always had this hands-on proactive approach. I think you've got to have that mindset to becoming a human rights lawyer or any type of lawyer. You've just got to have this go-getter attitude, because opportunities aren't going to drop into your lap. You're going to have to go out and get them.
Make your luck.
You've got to make your luck, but you've also got to, don't be so blinkered in the way that you approach that. Be open to different things. I think human rights law, to be a good practitioner, you've got to not only be able to, you've got to look at the wider picture, right? We're not just dealing with the UK, we're dealing with the European Court of Human Rights and their jurisdiction, we're dealing with international treaties, we're dealing with obligations that states have said that they're going to fulfill and simply don't. That's what human rights is. You're challenging the government or government regional bodies, etc., for their lack of adhering to human rights regulations and laws. So, you've got to be creative, you've got to think outside the box, and having this wider knowledge, I think, is, outer perspective that's not just law is quite important.
And I love, because you've talked to me a lot about that, getting a diverse range of experience and allowing different things that you've done to pull in and inform the kind of lawyer that you're going to be. And you've touched upon this as well, but I was wondering if it's also perhaps explaining how there's two things I think are quite unique to these kinds of areas, because I'm interested in public law as well. And that is the idea that your cases might be long, and it may be a very long time until you actually see any kind of result or movement. And the second thing as well is resilience, because you talked about it a bit we talked about it when you mentioned cases that may not stand with you morally, but the idea that you're looking at, like you said, looking at pretty grim content and actually being the kind of person that can not let that take over you. And I've been paralegaling on an inquiry looking into very serious child sexual abuse. And one of the biggest things that they emphasize to us is making sure that you're regulating your own well-being and giving yourself the opportunity to step away from the material. And I can only imagine when you're working in a human rights practice, and if you're supplementing that with other work like immigration and crime, that can be heavy, like really heavy to take in and absorb. And perhaps that's also an important thing people should consider when they're looking into human rights, is that, do you think that you would be able to manage yourself, I don't want to say emotionally, but your emotional response to things, and have you built up that resilience over time by doing other things and getting used to that? You know what I mean? The pressure.
Yeah, I guess pressure is definitely something that's so important. For any area of law, there are some things that are undeniably characteristics that you need for all areas of the law, and that is, as Blessing mentioned, this resilience. You need good people management skills. You need good time management. These cases do often go on for sometimes years and years if you're doing strategic litigation, and you don't want to start prepping things right at the end. You need to be working on this throughout, and to know how to do that. I guess, what you're alluding to also is having this thick skin, because of some of the issues that we come across and deal with. Yeah, I see some really gross stuff, really harrowing stuff that's, quite upsetting. But I'm very good at compartmentalizing, which, arguably isn't very healthy either. But I have my ways of release. I have my ways of coping that I've developed over time. I'm quite into my sport. That's something I do. So for me, I can have the worst day in the world, and then I go to, the gym where I train, and all is great in the world. So it's you've got to find your own way. You've got to find your balance, but you cannot be somebody who lets these things that you see or issues, like, you can't take them to heart. You've got to look at things objectively, and see them. How am I going to approach this as a lawyer, not how am I going to approach this as a very emotional human being, because then you're not going to have, the analytical, rigorous way of looking at things that you should.
The
Yeah.
separation from it. And I also want to encourage people that you can actually start doing that now. So a lot of people who are interested in human rights law have talked to me about, they're active online, getting into, I don't want to call it arguments, but getting into arguments online. So if learning how to stop, pause, distance, and, practicing that sort of mindfulness with your interactions with people online when you're talking about very hot and tense topics can
Yeah.
be, in my view, I think that can be a good way to actually start preparing yourself for what you're going to be doing in your career.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, be careful when you get into those intense conversations online. They can follow you around for a very long time if you say the wrong thing. Nowadays, we have seen the impact of social media. You say one wrong thing, as I've said, it will follow you for ages. So be careful with that. Don't. That doesn't mean you're not assertive with the things that you're passionate about and interested in, but don't go, rubbing people up the wrong way. There's just no need for that. It's all about staying civil, and true to your image, which is, if there are issues that you're passionate about, keep advocating for them, but in a manner that's sensible and not offensive or hostile. Yeah,
Informative
be
more than
informative.
reactive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, don't be hostile. Simple. So
Yeah.
people don't listen, they switch off, or everybody suddenly becomes a keyboard warrior, and then there is no productive conversation there anymore. So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, engage with these conversations, have them, start them, etc. But just don't get carried away, I guess.
And
I get all sorts of I think I told you this, Blessing, as well. I've recently been getting some really nasty messages on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I guess some of the content we produce, we publish on Human Rights Pulse, is quite contentious, to the point where people will send me things like, "You deserve to die for writing this," and lots of foul language as well. And it's like, it's all right. I literally couldn't give two craps, and I'm simply not going to engage. I block and I move on. Like, I don't, I report, block, and move on. That sort of, profanity and just hostile, that's not good for anyone. And honestly, those people shouldn't be on social media at all.
Exactly. They shouldn't be. And first of all, I'm really sorry that you've been receiving all of those things. And secondly, I really think that's perhaps a really important thing that maybe isn't talked about enough, that being active, we talked about continuing the conversation and amplifying people's voices. As soon as you start posting about things that need to be amplified, there can be other people who don't necessarily agree with you. And
Yeah.
just being mentally prepared to report, block, delete, report, block, delete,
Yeah.
report, block, delete. Construct your social media. And, you know, with most of my, pretty much all of my Instagram pages, you can't comment unless you follow me. At least that's like a first barrier to randos from like coming onto my post. And I just have a swift policy of delete, block. I just don't engage.
Yeah.
And that emotional disengagement, I think, is a really important skill to learn.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you've also got to differentiate between, is somebody being hostile with, you know, a good point that they're making that I should engage with, or is it just for no
Hostile.
good reason, they're just being horrible people? So, I mean, you've also got to calculate that and such. But it's a skill and you learn it, and you should. This is the world that we live in, so learn to engage with it, learn how to figure it out.
I took, gosh, it took me a while. Like I used to get really upset when I would be online and people, and then I just learned, I just went into Twitter and I muted words, I muted phrases, I muted accounts, I blocked accounts.
Yeah.
Now when I go on my Twitter, it's just like a nice feed of things I like. I don't see anything I don't like. I don't see anybody I don't
Yeah.
like. And it just makes me happy. And then I just put out all of my, you know, when I talk about things that are important to me, the people who are seeing it are the people who actually care. And we're having a good back and forth. And it's
Yeah.
healthy mindfulness for social media. If you are going to be pursuing your career in human rights or anything contentious or involving, I think can I say political issues?
Yeah.
Yeah, because political by nature.
Human rights is political by nature, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
anything involving political things is gonna put you in a position where sometimes people are gonna not take the view that you take, and therefore, so I try and do this thing sometimes when if I do see something and I just know I need to reply, rather than allow them to directly attack me, I just provide a link to some informative resources. So I'll be like,
Interesting. Yeah.
I'll say something like, actually, there are disproportionate deaths of Black and ethnic minority people in police custody. Here's a link to the report produced by X government agency. There.
Yeah.
Don't argue with
No,
me.
that's so, yeah. I mean, that's such a good way to approach it. I must say, though, I am a bit different in terms of the way you approach social media, which you've said is to create this happy medium that, you know, is nice to go onto Twitter and stuff. I like to follow a lot of pages, and I know lots of people follow me as well who I don't agree with. So that's something I have because, you know, for the last few years, there's been this whole red versus blue Facebook page sort of debate. You know, are the people who are super conservative seeing one thing, or the people who are super liberal seeing another thing? Yeah, and my thing has always been I want to know both sides of the coin. And I have friends who are, you know, Trump supporters or, you know, that don't believe in some of the issues that I care about very much. And it's good to engage with those people as long as you're, you know, your mannerisms are the same. And
they speak to you with respect
they
as
speak to you
well.
with respect.
Yeah.
You need to have it. If you're going to be a good lawyer or just a human rights practitioner, you need to know what the debate on the other side is. What are people saying on the other side? And that's something I constantly make sure, you know, I'm engaging with people like that on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, etc. So for me, I don't want social media to be a safe place. I want it to be a place without profanity or, you know, that, but I don't want it to, I don't go there to calm my mind. I have my own private, you know, social
That's
media
really
pages for that.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I use it to get information, like information. So whether that's both sides of the spectrum, for me, it's not this, it's not to fulfill my personal, I guess.
I see that because then you go on, you have a purpose, you know what you're looking for. I think I used to do that, but then once I realized that actually, like you said, you know, I do want to spend a lot of time. Well, I don't. I actually limit. Now, this is something that a lot of people might be surprised by. I'm not on Instagram or Twitter for more than a collective hour a day, and actually, I'm not on any social media app for more than a collective hour a day. I pre-schedule a lot of my content. So when I go online, it's with the sole purpose of engaging with the people who want to engage with me. So
Yeah.
I'll go out and I'll, look at what the people I'm following have been posting. And I sort of have curated my social media in that sense. But when it's time for me to get, like you said, do that research, I've really found myself enjoying, well, I've always enjoyed reading articles. That's always going to be a favorite thing for me. But I also particularly like going on YouTube and watching people having in lives like this, having discussions and reading the comments.
Hmm.
I love YouTube comment sections because it's the wild wild west. But when you're looking for what are real people saying about this, that's where YouTube comment. It used to be what Facebook was for me, but then I had to avoid Facebook because Facebook just got really toxic for me around about our
Yeah.
last general election, and I was like, I'm gonna need some time before I'm ready to return to this app. So I moved to YouTube. And so even when you go on to, for example, a YouTube video and it's one of the main news broadcasters, they've maybe done a special segment into a particular issue, I'll genuinely sit down with a cup of tea and I will just scroll through all of the comments and just get a picture of what are people saying, because most of the time people watch a YouTube video, just comment, and then that's it straight away. That's just their thoughts. And I like to do it that way because then I can have a sort of third party look at other people's conversations and arguments, because I think when it comes to you're much more, I don't know how to explain it, but well, you're badass, so you're much more comfortable with just like going straight into it. But with me, I'm like, the second somebody starts speaking to me with a disrespect for my personhood or my intelligence, I
Yeah.
shut down. And I'm just like, honestly, even if you were making a good point, the very fact that you're disrespectful, I can't. So I find with Twitter, a lot of people just don't have any like manners or decorum. Whereas on YouTube, I feel there's a bit more of a, I'm going to respect the fact that you exist and are intelligent, and then I'm going to respond that way. So I like to do it that way because I think if I adopting your approach for my social media, I think I would just get so exhausted and burned out so quickly. So it's fascinating to see how you do it and how, another approach to it. But you're genuinely really badass, and I really want everyone to follow Axa because genuinely she is.
Don't know about badass.
You're so
Oh, cheers,
cool.
mate.
I'm always singing your praises for that reason. You're fearless, and that's why you're going to be such
Thank you.
a good lawyer. And this is why this area is clearly.
Oh, you all need to find a friend like Blessing who's always going to hype you up.
I see myself as professional hype women.
Yeah.
Okay, so that actually, if I'm just going to go through, so that concludes all of our questions from the pre-submitted questions. I just wanted to share some of the comments. Matt says, report, block, and delete. Big energy. Yes. That is really good energy, and I'm really glad Axa touched on that. Diana's just getting lots of love, as she should. And Simran has shared saying that's a good approach for the different ways that we handle and manage our social media. So there's still we're still out here in the live, so we're probably just gonna, Aksha and I are just gonna just continue chatting just for a little bit. And if you guys have any more questions, please comment. Otherwise, we're probably going to wrap this up in about 5 minutes or so. So before we wrap it up, Axa, I wanted to talk to you about, now this is completely off piste, but it's still relevant to human rights. Do you find yourself finding learning different languages or knowing different languages to be a very helpful thing for you in your human rights career?
Yeah, 100%. So as in like oral languages,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know. Nowadays we've got Python and R and all that crap as well. I did start a computer coding course
Oh, she
in the first
codes.
week of lockdown. Yeah, it lasted like an hour,
Yeah.
and then I just
But you did
died.
it, and that's what counts.
Yeah, exactly. I signed up. I started. Listen, during high school, I loved languages. I learned French. I learned Spanish to quite a high level. I also did them during A levels and then a bit in uni. And then I worked in countries. So lived in Paris for a bit. I was in Argentina for a bit. And I just sort of worked in that environment, which was quite cool. Obviously, over time, it deteriorates if you don't use it, but
Yeah, if you don't use them.
it's but it's still so useful to have. When I was in New York and I was at the UN, which was really cool, just last summer, I was networking and talking to people, and it was so useful to be able to do so in French and Spanish and English, and it's just courteous if you can speak to somebody in their native tongue. Sadly, I don't know Arabic, Russian and Chinese,
You'll
but
learn this time.
I think this time, yeah. But I think once you learn one language, you learn the structure of learning a language and it becomes easier. And I do think if you want to go into the international space, like I do, you do need to become proficient at a language in legalese as well. So, I should be able to say Your Honour in French and as
Different
much as I
modes
can
of
in Spanish.
address. How do you speak to colleagues?
Absolutely, yeah.
That kind of
And the formal stuff. Whereas now I can have great conversation and banter, even maybe in French or Spanish, but that's about it.
I love Spanish. I
No.
needed to learn French. No, but I wanted to ask you that because I remember, you're always helpful for French translations. So, no, but that's something that I think that a lot of people should think about that they maybe hadn't considered. If you do want to work in human rights, by virtue of it being international, what would you suggest? If I say start with French, do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Spanish is a bit easier to pronounce.
Yeah, Spanish is the best.
Yeah, because French you miss out half the letters in a word. So
Now they don't know what you're saying anymore. I always find with French people, I get scared because if I pronounce their language wrong, they're just like, let's just do English because.
yeah, I mean you got to find the right French people as well. Most of them are, not as. I think the idea of the French stereotype is that you start speaking, they'll recognize your English and they'll just go into English straight away. I don't know. My experience was different when I lived in Paris. Everyone was so excited that, oh, look at her trying to speak French. And I was like, do not speak to me in English.
Like, I
You're
refuse.
banned. Like, yeah, I will not answer you. So, yeah, that's how I got better at French.
That's really good. No, I would really encourage if you are thinking about human rights, just learning a second language. If you don't already speak a second language, it can be a nice way for you to just be ready. Because I definitely saw when I was looking for internships after the GDL, I was, trying to find things to do, and it was always French speaker, French speaker, French speaker, French speaker, and I was like, or second language preferred. And I was like, I can speak Spanish, but I never learned legal Spanish. I learned
Yeah.
going to Spain with my girlfriend's Spanish, which is not the Spanish that I need.
Cerveza, por favor.
Yeah, cerveza. But that wasn't the Spanish that we needed.
Yeah.
Okay, so Karina's asked a question on the employed bar, which we'll answer.
Yeah.
And unless somebody gets a question in by the time we're finished with this one, that'll probably be our last one because Aqsa and I, I have a 3-year-old brother that wanted a sandwich about 2 hours ago, and Aqsa's got things to do as well. So let's answer this question and then we'll wrap it up. So, what are your opinions on the employed bar? Do you think it helps with building experience before entering the self-employed bar?
Listen, if you can get pupillage anywhere, take it, right? That's the thing. That's my thing. Yeah. And if you are at the employed bar, you can go into the self-employed bar, and vice versa. It's easy to move over. And I think we'll be seeing a lot of shifts in the next few months to years just because of coronavirus. People, potentially like the stability of the employed bar as opposed to the self-employed bar.
Or there's more certainty over your income and
exactly the sort of work, the support you'll get, etc. I mean, I know a lot of criminal barristers who 90% of their income has been wiped out because of coronavirus. That's just not. You can't sustain a life like that if if you're not already loaded or have a very rich family to lean back on.
And the elitism thing, I think when a lot of people see, because I could understand why you would look at the bar and then be like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It seems to be the only people working in these areas are wealthy. And it's honestly one of the saddest things about it, because the fact is, if these areas were more or better remunerated. Like you said, Axa, the most ethnic diversity most of the time are in these areas of law. So if people were actually able to sustain themselves comfortably, we'd probably see a massive shift in perception. And
Mhm.
that money thing, it's one of the things that irritates me the most about the bar profession, how you could have different areas of law with massive disparity in income, and people who would be like, I would have done crime, I would have done human rights, but I had to eat and pay a mortgage. That's just something that really just like irks me. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
you mentioned that and you talked about that before, because I think you can definitely see that's quite a salient point when it comes to making decisions. But like Axa said, all experience is good experience if you can get it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll be very honest with you guys. I am seriously considering the sustainability of me in this profession, whether, if things continue the way they are, am I going to be able to continue at the criminal bar?
Mm.
I've got a great pupillage award now, but that runs out in October. After that, am I going to be able to have a decent line of work? Am I going to be able to continue engaging with the public sort of human rights stuff I want to do, and also be able to finally get my own apartment, even if that's rent, or yeah, there are lots of considerations, and I'm by no means an expert in knowing how to figure them out. So yeah, I'm in this game with you guys,
Yeah,
I guess,
all out.
as yeah, we're all trying to figure it out. I guess the best we can do now is just try and recognize that it is a level playing field in terms of everybody having access to the social media stuff, and use that to your advantage. Attend these webinars online, do online courses. Aluchi, you just asked about the languages. Yeah, definitely consider learning a language online as well. It's just important. Use this time to build your skills.
Skills building, exactly.
Yeah.
So Alushi asked an extra question. She just said she wanted to know what you were doing in the UN and if you want to work for them in the future, and how would you go about that. Do you want to answer that here, or do you want to have that conversation separately directly with her? What do you feel?
I can quickly allude to it now, because I think most people in the human rights world want to engage with the UN in some way, just because it is that international
Yep.
mechanism that allows you to do that, to deal with these issues on a very global level. So that, yeah, has in a way always been a dream. I'm not sure if I would 100% like run over and work there now if I could. I mean, if I'm offered a job, maybe. But it's. I think once you're in it, you're in this massive bureaucracy, and that's
Mm.
something I struggle with. I don't like politics.
You want
I
to
can't be
do
bothered
what you
for it.
do.
Yeah, I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to, have to answer to 1,000 people before a tiny, we add a little comma in a document, so to speak. And yeah, I think what was I doing there? I was on a human rights law internship, actually. So I was sort of almost seconded to the UN. So we were doing some work for them, and yeah, I attended the high level political forum on sustainability as well. That was a 2-week thing in the UN, and various other events. So, I mean, it was such a cool experience. It's such an inspiring environment to be in, just because it is truly international. That's
Yeah.
what's so beautiful about it. Yeah, I think just again, how would I go about doing that if I wanted to get for somebody at your stage? Just try to build your CV, get as much interesting experience as you can here in your home turf before kind of expanding out. Yeah, we're already in conversation, Aluchi. I've still to reply to your extensive LinkedIn message, so I will do that, and I'm more than happy to guide you through the process as well. And anybody else who wants to get in touch, feel free to connect on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm really accessible. I think most people will tell you in terms of
Really, really
responding.
accessible. She's really, really good. And I'm always just really just proud of you because you spend so much time actually giving out. And so before we
You
wrap
do
up,
too.
I just thank you. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to emphasize that point. Axa's not kidding when she says that she started this process on the GDL not knowing. And one thing that you and I talked about a lot was just how difficult it was to just get that information. And I remember starting Blessing at the Bar just before we started the GDL, was definitely birthed out of that same sentiment that you
Hmm.
felt and interacted with. Sometimes when you're trying to just learn about the bar, you get hit with a brick wall. And I know sometimes people might not understand, why would, especially someone who's not a pupil yet, why would I want to spend so much time trying to help and educate other people? And it's honestly, and actually, I'm sure you can relate. I spend the majority of my time helping people with the basics. Nothing crazy complicated, just the basic information. What is a
Hmm.
mini pupillage? What is a pupillage? What is a chambers? What's an inn of court? How do you pick one? What's the BPTC? How expensive is it? How long is it?
Yeah,
You would
very essential things that none of us knew when we
We
started
didn't
this
know.
process.
You just sort of,
Yeah.
I was lucky because I wanted to do this when I was a kid, so I'd read a few books. But even then, I remember going to the Inn of Court for the first time and I was like, Hogwarts? Like, I just didn't
Yeah.
know what it was
No,
for.
100%. I think blessing at the bar is, everyone who's on this live stream will know that it is an excellent resource for you to figure out this profession, especially in your early days of navigating it. And blessing, you're doing an amazing job just sharing your journey, which is full of highs and lows. You've won
Many lows!
incredible, yeah, you've won incredible moots, but you've also, you say you haven't got pupillage yet, but you are constantly working at it. And what you're showing is pure resilience. You're putting yourself out there, you're making yourself vulnerable, and you're showing people that there isn't a straight path. It's not as you click your fingers, you get into the profession. There is hard work, there's persistence that comes into it, and I think you're an excellent example of that, and obviously an inspiration to many people, so including myself.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
you inspired me too, and I loved being here. I made a I made a comment online on one of my tweets just to say that um you you always inspire me, and I'm proud of you because you're fantastic at anything it is that you set your mind to, and everything that you have created with Human Rights Pulse and that you're going to go on to create is purely from your own ability to be like, I want to get this done, I'm going to pull it together, I'm going to make it happen. Your existence in the bar profession has come from that same energy. And what I really want people to take away from seeing this conversation that I've been having with Aqsa, and if you've just been introduced with Aqsa, this is why I want you to follow her and engage with her, is because she is by definition like a self-starter. She is exactly what you want. And I love having her as a friend because she doesn't really suffer fools. And I think we could say in our friendship, we don't really spend a lot of time on like, woe be unto me. Like, we're always like, okay, what can we do? What's the next step? How do we
Yeah.
move through this like situation? And
I mean, let's also not lie, we also cry about boys sometimes and
yeah,
family,
that's
so
nice. That's like, we split it. We have a good amount. It's like serious legal conversation and why are men mad? It's
yeah.
great, but we
Sorry
have
to all the
everything.
boys out there.
I'm not sorry at all. Um,
Your viewers.
oh yeah, sorry to any of our male viewers. You're great, and we really
Yeah, you guys are good. The rest are, yeah.
yeah, the rest are not our faves. But yeah, thank you so much. And everyone, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen, you've got Axe's Instagram and my Instagram. So follow us, engage with us, follow Human Rights Pulse. It's Human Rights Pulse on Instagram and Pulse Human on Twitter. And subscribe to the mailing list. Yeah.
Yep, we have a mailing list.
Subscribe to the mailing list so you don't miss any of the posts. Simran says, lol, you feel us. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. This has been amazing. Sorry about the beginning and running around, but we got there in the end. And yeah, I really have loved this conversation I've had with you. And, you're going to see Aqsa all the time. We're always in each other's comments. So we're, we're always out there.
Yeah, listen, it's all about women supporting women at the end of the day. And also good guys who support women in their endeavors. We're late to the game. We're a few centuries late, right? This is our time to shine. So let's, support each other, comment on each other's stuff, share each other's stuff, and just, help each other in whatever way we can.
Great stuff. Thank you. Everyone's just saying thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, AXA. And I'm going to end the live now, but I will post this all on social media and stuff like that. Antonia, thank you for your message. Thank you, everyone, for attending this event. And I just really had a great time. I was really excited for it. Karina says thank you as well. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye.